I am as well. And Rajani, do you want to just give a quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah, why not? So I'm Rajani, and I have 20 plus years in engineering, in embedded systems and developing services. I'm a principal engineer at a company called U-Blox, and currently we're working on centimeter level accuracy positioning systems. So it is a mix of embedded, building backend engineering for these embedded systems, chips and chipsets that work on positioning and wireless systems. I'm a mom of two children, 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I love I've always done engineering, and I'm quite passionate about engineering. Over to you.
Thanks, Rajani. Vina, do you want to also introduce yourself? Vina is our fourth panelist.
Hi, yeah, I'm Winna. I work as a principal engineer at a company called Syntasso, and we build tools for platform engineering organizations. I've been in engineering for more than a decade and came to engineering from design. I also have two children, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. So if you hear ruckus in the background, it's because they're not happy about having to go to bed. So apologies for any noise that comes through.
That's all right, Vina. Thank you for the introduction. And let's begin on the panel. So the first question, now because we have all introduced ourselves, Rajani, I want to start with you. If you could just let us all know, you did mention that you have about more than 20 years of experience in software engineering. So how did you actually transition into backend engineering? If you could throw some light on that one.
Yeah, thank you. It's actually a very good question, and it makes me think, because when you are going through your career, you don't really sit and think. You just like moving on. So I have 20 plus years experience, and I started off as a really different field, which is embedded systems. It's still like I have a computing degree. I was doing computing, and I've worked with COBOL, Fortran, all the the evolution of computers, floppy disk. So I'm quite ancient in that sense, but I did it when I was a child because that was my interest. I took it instead of a language, and I have done computing since I was a child. So when I started my career, my first job was in Philips. And as you know, Philips, it's TVs, set-top boxes, and the firmware that actually goes in these TVs for it to work, the software like teletext and EPG. That's how I started my career. Initially, it was like, wow, this is not the software engineering I learned. There's a lot of electronics and the whole components of the TVs and so on and so forth. But it's just a matter of time where you're comfortable with it. Moving on, so basically there was a spin-off from Philips, NXP Semiconductors, and into a startup called Geotate, which is a capture and process software. So you take, again, I work with satellites and positioning, right? So slightly different field to the usual services UI. So so this particular service that I was, I got the opportunity to build is my first transition from that embedded world. So in embedded world, it's all about resource constraints, right? You have to think about memory, you have to think about CPU, think about data bandwidth, you think about all these things, and you literally optimize. Whereas like the service, when I start off the service, is a different shift. It's like a different total, domain, a different realm where it's like unlimited capacity for memory, CPU, this, and then there are other problems to solve, like redundancy and high availability. And I like that I got to be build this service with a background of embedded, because I can be right in the cusp and overlap. And I like being in that niche space where when I build services, it is to build, I don't know if you can see, it's to work with devices like these, which is which is a completely different sort of thinking. And of course, there is a lot of backend engineering because you're putting this APIs and databases and various services to work with them, and you're a lot of algorithmic works and problems to solve. But I like that it's it's a good mix for me, and I enjoy being in this. So I feel like I'm doing like engineering in that sense, with satellites, working with satellites and cellular base stations, and at the same time getting the whole where I work with AWS, so all the cloud related stuff, and use that solutions to build services so the data can be sent to these receivers. So that came about. Yeah.
Thank you, Rajani. Vina, I would pass the question to you next. So what made you transition into backend engineering, and how from where you started your career?
Yeah, I think Rajani and I could not have come from more opposite ends of the spectrum. So I did not study engineering at university. Rajani, I might just mute you. I think I might be getting a bit of feedback. There we go. I didn't study engineering. I didn't have sort of the deep technical angle coming in. I came from design, visual design, designing magazines, taking photographs, things like that, transitioned into engineering in a full stack capacity, mostly thinking front ends, UIs, web stuff. Oh, this is where the users are. This is where I'm interested, and worked on a number of projects that were full stack. And through that got experience looking at the database, thinking about queries, thinking about front end to back end, how to design an API and the responses, how to deal with data. And I think for me, the backend challenges were not totally different, actually, to some of the challenges you think about as a designer or on the front end. And I realized that it was similar, but also different enough to be really interesting. So one of the projects I worked with on for a grocery company, where we were building a full stack application to do just-in-time on-demand grocery delivery for sort of hyper-local neighborhoods, had a Golang backend with a Swift front end. And I just really liked Go compared to, I'd been doing Swift, JavaScript and things. So I was at a company that had consulting, which is where I had started, and got to be on a bunch of projects. But then they also had R&D, where we were building products that we were actually shipping out to customers. And those products were sort of binaries for enterprise organizations. And it was all in Golang, and it was all backend, and it was completely abandoning any UI whatsoever. And I just felt like I wanted to take a new challenge. So I spoke with my manager just about my next step in growth, and said, like, I don't hate backend, and Golang's actually kind of interesting. And TDD for APIs is, test-driven development is quite interesting when you're thinking about servers. So what do you think? So I did a 3-month rotation that ended up being permanent within R&D. And once I got there, I really enjoyed it. And sort of the opportunities came from there. And I kept I think, as Rajani mentioned it, you don't really think about it so much until you have to step back and think about it. So yeah, since then I've been doing backend work.
Okay, thanks, Vina. Irina, we would like to hear from you next on how did you start your career, and how did you transition into backend engineering?
Yeah, thank you so much. So my story is that I actually always was in love with programming, and I started with programming in school when it was Pascal, Basics, and there was a lot of talented guys around who actually were winners of Olympiads of programming. So to be honest, I thought that I wouldn't be able programmer because I didn't have wings in these Olympiads. And then I start with university to actually learn math and physics, more about them. And yeah, then I realized that I don't like actually physics, and I still love programming. And despite everyone around me already learned so much more, like a lot of about processors and etc. And I didn't participate in these courses, which were additional. And somehow I decided, okay, I'm going to try anyway. I'm going to try even if I feel that I'm not that good as guys around me. And it took me a while before I actually could hit my first interview for Java backend developer. And also I did my diploma in C++. I realized that I actually will love Java because it's easier to program in Java than in C++. And you can write more products for people, like some banking software, than like something low level that maybe for space and etc. I just felt like I want more build for user experience. And yeah, that's how I started. And I changed a lot of companies, and I also programmed in Scala. And I think I also can program in Kotlin because it's the same Java language. And yeah, I love that it's all becoming more and more developed. Like, I love that now we have everything in cloud, and it's so easier to see what I'm doing because you have CI/CD processes right now in the place. So you literally put the button and it's go to production. For me, it's like rocket ship after my, if I compare it with the first job when everything was in the servers and we didn't have this CI/CD, we had ops people who actually put software in production, and it could lead like several months before you will see what exactly happening there. But I really love how it looks like right now, and that's about my story.
Okay, thank you, Irina. And I'll go next. And I have been in software engineering since more than a decade now, and I was introduced to it in a very traditional way. Like Irina, I was always fond of programming, and so I took up a computer science degree. And then my first job was actually with Microsoft as a part of their campus placement program. And I would say I was very lucky in my early days of my career to actually get an exposure to trying out different domains, to trying out different phases of software engineering, I would say. I have been a full stack engineer. I have also been a software development engineer in test. I have also been like a product owner and a product manager in that way. And I think my love for backend engineering actually came very gradually because I explored so many domains, and because I got to work with both front end and back end, I would say I realized that I like developing systems more across the logic side of things, where like I love dealing with APIs, I love databases, I love exploring how systems are actually built and how the deployment takes place, like debugging issues, etc. Like everything which is a part of backend engineering, I would say. So I guess that is how my transition into backend engineering was made. And I think one thing that both me and Irina bond over a lot is over the love of Java. We both like Java a lot because of the ease and complexity both of which Java can be used to program. So yeah, that is how my transition into backend engineering was made, and that's my story. Okay, we'll move on to the next question is, from our experiences working in backend engineering, what would you think, let's start with you, Rajani, what would you think are or how would you classify the different areas in backend engineering? What are the top things that maybe you have worked on and you can differentiate them as different areas?
Yeah. So backend engineering is everything backend, and it's like it's quite a vast expanse, right from distributed systems, microservices, which is my favorite topic, by the way, and security aspects, data management with your NoSQL, database management systems, APIs, security, scalability, solving scalability issues in these systems. It can range from, including like algorithms. So it's a very vast topic, to be honest. And just like even languages, there are some preferable languages. I use C# instead of Java. They're very similar, high-level languages, but I just prefer C# because that's what I've been using. I like the DevOps side of things. I also like the emerging technologies. How can we use serverless computing? And we do use serverless computing, and just the AI, the ML side of things. So it is like, everything backend that will help you run a service, including APIs. And it is a vast subject, and you can go into the detail and it becomes like its own topic.
Okay, thanks, Rajni. Vinod, would you like to add on to any other areas that you might have worked on, or in particular?
No, I think I agree that it is really broad, and it comes down to, it all comes down to context, right? Like companies are going to have different requirements and different structures for how they set up teams and how they set up their broader organization. And depending on the size of the company, there's going to be different types of requirements you might have a software engineer, whether your label is full stack or back end or front end. So you'll get exposure to a lot of the things that we're talking about in a lot of different kinds of roles. I think stepping back, thinking somebody who maybe has heard about, back-end engineering, but doesn't know much, or maybe is a bit worried about trying to break in, what I would say is, to Rajani's point, like, don't let the fact that it's really broad make you feel intimidated, if that makes sense. If anybody does have any worries about how much there is out there, because I do think it does come down to, like, you're given a problem and that problem will require solutions. And for those solutions, just like anything else, you'll learn what you need to learn to figure out the answers. So I think it's quite exciting because you can throw a stone in any direction and learn something new. But hopefully folks don't walk away thinking that it's too broad to not be intimidating, if that makes sense.
Yep, that does make sense, Vinna. Thank you for sharing your ideas on this. Irina, do you want to add on to any different areas that you have worked on, and what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think that it's definitely different. Even in one company, it could be different domains from business perspective, and these domains require different things to learn, to know, and to manage. Sometimes, like, it's very business logic to implement, so it's required to actually integrate with front end, design REST HTTP API, and that's it. I think that some domains, like more financial domains, when you have low level trading, like frequency trading that require you to learn more about concurrency, to how to handle operations on the low level, and to learn more about internet, to understand like fixed protocol, because a lot of things on this protocol which is a bit faster than TCP, than HTTP REST protocol. And yeah, to be able to tune performance if something go in the direction that is not applicable for your trading. Other things like distributed system, like sometimes you can be a platform engineer, so you have to learn how many things to handle, how many things to integrate with each other. And yeah, it's also different areas, and you have a huge number of data. You have big data centers, and you have a lot of shards that distribute the data. So you have terabytes of data there, and you have to understand how correctly to design such systems, how to put their keys correctly to distribute the data, how to not fail the whole system if something went wrong. So I would say it's a lot. It's a lot in backend engineering. So, and I didn't cover the things that Rajani is working for, because it's also different level, different domain. And yeah, it's a lot. And sometimes you touch only coding backend part, and you more like manage how to integrate with other people and etc. Sometimes you need to also put CI/CD into place, put containers into place, and it depends on how small company or big company. Advantage of working in very small companies that you cover in everything, you know how everything is working, the end-to-end process. Advantage of working in big company, you move your business forward without spending too much time to do all preferences in the system, because there are other teams who do it. And yeah, it's really different from company to company. Sometimes I just do not understand what to learn next, because the things that I did in previous company, they are not applicable for this company. And the things that I did in company once back again, they also didn't interfere with the things that I'm working on right now. And sometimes it feels like, okay, you have so many years of experience, but still it's hard to apply previous experience to new tasks. And sometimes I feel, okay, I just know how to code. I don't need to learn at least this part. I can learn the main from the code, and which is good. Yeah, but I can't even give an advice right now, like what to learning for the future, because so many things is changing every day, and you don't know what will be there on the plate in the next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Irina. And yes, I would definitely agree with that fact that which all the other panelists have mentioned today, that backend engineering could look different in different organizations. And I have actually worked with different kinds of organizations. Like I have worked with a startup, I have worked with bigger organizations, and like, for example, Microsoft, backend engineering at Microsoft could look very different from backend engineering at an investment bank like JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs, because for an investment bank, the backend engineering part could just be to maintain high frequency trading applications or in-house applications that the traders are using, or even maintaining the infrastructure and possibly the scalability and reliability of the services that they are providing, which are being used by the traders. However, for an organization like Facebook or Meta or Microsoft or Google, it looks very different, because they have both like in-house applications. They could have applications that are used by hundreds of users. And so they might be working with APIs, databases, and cloud systems, and all of them have different categories and different kind of problems to solve. So yeah, I mean, that would I say cover like different aspects in the backend engineering. Which brings me to my next question is, what's the favorite part about working in backend engineering? Any specific thing that you have liked so far, which has actually helped you also stay motivated and rooted at the same time? So Rajani, we'll begin with you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I get excited about that question. Like, what is your favorite part? And it's really hard for me to say this is my favorite part or that is it. And with a lot of thinking, I think it's distributed systems and microservices, because it is solving like scalability issues, and the horizontal scaling. You know, for databases, sometimes you may want to do horizontal scaling. You may want to solve the issues with caching, load balancing. And my favorite part is when I started in backend engineering, I was introduced to Postgres, and I had to learn bottom up, and I enjoyed like optimizing these database queries. And mind you, this database queries does a little more than just like select queries. It was applying mathematical algorithms as it was doing, and some geometry queries as well, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And I think to add, security, I think, is the biggest thing for me. It's a challenge to keep it secure. Make sure like whatever you're building, I try and keep security in the forefront of it. So like, it is my favorite part, because you're thinking about these things in various systems. How are you going to solve the authentication problems? How can you make it easy for the customer? There's a lot of problems you're solving in terms of that. And like I said, database management, no SQL versus RDBMS, which is the best solution? How do you go with it? And because I've used AWS and having hosted in a non-cloud environment, and how and seen the issues and the pitfalls with hosting the services outside, and having that switch to AWS, I think like 15 years ago, when AWS just basically started, we were early takers of AWS, and how AWS has evolved and evolving with them, and keeping in with what they have to provide, and the whole serverless. So I'm an evangelist for AWS serverless, because it basically solves most of the redundancy scalability problems. And I actually then focus on solving engineering problems rather than solving, like reinventing the wheel. So yeah, so these are some of my favorite topic. Yeah, anything that's challenging is yeah is welcome. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Rajani. Vina, what is your favorite part about working in backend engineering?
Again, I think that's a super interesting question, and similar to Rajani, there's a whole lot out there. I find if I look back over the things that I've focused on at different periods, it really is such a spectrum, and they've all been interesting for different reasons at different times. I think some really good questions from Grace and Sarah about what do you focus on? What kind of roles should you be looking for? How do you learn? I think in terms of learning and where I've been drawn, and also the types of roles I've looked at, I've tended to just try something out and see how much energy it gives me, whether it's a certification program or an event that's happening where I can rock up and speak to someone, or creating a fake project that lets me try something out. Things like, as Irina's mentioning, system design versus things that Rajani talked about with scalability and security. These are all really core concepts. And I think I've learned differently for each of them. Some of them I've not thought about once until I had to sit down and try to implement an off system. And others I've worked with a friend on how to build up like a generic data structure in a language that didn't have generics. So I think it's really where are you in your career and in your life? What kind of time do you have? How social are you feeling? And how can you get energy from what you're learning? So for me, it's been depending on the year and how busy or how maxed out I feel, it's been different. But I would say to the question about favorite parts and whether you should apply to roles that have overlap with what you know, one of the things that I think applies generically across jobs that I've found useful is if you are changing roles, try to find something that has a bunch of new stuff, but at least one familiar thing. So in my case, pivoting from a backend to a backend, but new domains, or the same domain, but full stack to backend, keeping something similar so that you're not completely drowning in the unknown. I think if you're going into backend, then for the first time, or you're trying to really grow up your skills, then having a touch point of familiarity, whether it's, I'm used to front end, but now I'm more interested in back end, then think about what the domain is and see if you can find something back end in the domain that you're already familiar with, things like that. So figuring out how to connect. But to me, they're all different challenges that you can just pick up, and really there's so much out there to help you learn in so many different ways you can learn, that it's quite fun as long as you don't get overwhelmed, which is something I will repeat over and over.
Thank you. Thanks, Sena. Irina, what is the favorite part about backend engineering that you like?
Well, my favorite part to see how it works on the user side. So yeah, like, to be honest, it's my favorite part. Currently, I'm working just as a product engineer, so I build some things that then work on mobile side as well. And when product owners see, okay, it works, and I see that, for example, to add new feature, I already prepared something, so it will be quickly. I feel like, okay, that's cool. That's actually cool. And yeah, like when I also can test application by myself, it's also very inspiring. Like, okay, you made it. You really made it. That's my stage right now. Of course, there are more low-level tasks that I solved in the past as well. Like even this year, I was able to reduce performance for a lot, like reducing a lot of queries to database, which were excess queries. And on the code level, I had to reuse data in different parts, which wasn't like super exciting because you do something that's someone else done in the wrong way and you're trying to fix it. But then you see this drop down on the diagram, and that's my favorite part again. Like you see, okay, now I done with impact. So right now it's the favorite part to see the impact that I'm doing there. I think there was a time in the beginning when my favorite part was actually to build it, to see that it's compiled, to see that it's went through review. And it was already like, okay, it's there, it's cool. And yeah, I even a little bit miss about this time, and just writing the code was so exciting. Right now, I just did too much coding. And yeah, my favorite part now to see like the end goal. And yeah, I wonder what will be next, to be honest.
Thanks, Irina. I think everybody's favorite part should be to be able to build your solution without breaking the production environment, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, for me, I think the favorite part about working in backend engineering is that you actually learn a lot from every different project that you work with. For example, currently I work with a lot of APIs. Our application is a API heavy system, I would say, because we are integrated with a lot of providers and integrators, and essentially we fetch in data and inventory from various sources, and then yeah, so that becomes like quite API intensive, and you get to learn a lot about REST APIs and authentication and how JWT tokens are used and everything around that. That is just one aspect of it. But when your code actually goes out to production, how does that service or system that you're actually working with, how does the application work on a whole, being integrated with various other services? That is, again, another part that I enjoy learning more about. We work with AWS, and that is also something that I am currently learning, because I believe as an engineer, it is always good to know, to be able to debug and know about how things are deployed. If something doesn't work out, where to actually go and look for. Let's say and a particular instance is down or something, how to go about that. So essentially, as much as I enjoy learning about doing things on backend engineering, I would say once that application is developed, the next step of that is also somehow related with backend, and it's always good to learn more about that. So I think the constant learning process is something that I really enjoy about backend, and that is what keeps me motivated to work in this field. Which brings me to my next question is, do you ever get bored of working in the field? Like, do you have days when you have to do like the same work over and over again? And if so, do you get bored of it? And how do you like overcome that situation?
Yeah.
Rajani, will start with you.
Thank you. It's so before you ask this question, if you were to ask me generally, I'd say, I get to work on interesting, cool stuff. So do I really get bored? But then with a little more deeper, thinking, I think I wouldn't say bored, but burnout definitely. So so once you've mastered, so for me, because I've been very lucky to work on the first of the kind cutting edge. So, thankfully, I'm really grateful for that opportunities. However, I think after a certain point, applying the same solution gets a little boring in that sense. And burnout, because there's a lot to do, and trying to balance that burnout and boredom. So what I do is I learn new things, see what is the latest technology, how can we solve this differently, what can I learn, and being just open to that, like the new ways of solving this, rather than, okay, we've traditionally solved this like this, but is there something new that's there that could do it quicker, better, optimize, cost effective? And and that keeps me going. And also like the burnout and the boredom, it's like I have interests outside of work, which is technical and something that I'm passionate about. So that gives me the healthy work-life balance. And I think we underestimate growth mindset. Having worked with different teams, I think we underrate the growth mindset. Sometimes we don't realize that we are open to like this, and we want to learn new things, and we have the attitude like anything new comes on, we pick up and go. Whereas I work with teams where sometimes that is a challenge. So just if I think it's about managing like burnout and getting bored is basically, what else can you do? How can you solve the same problem differently? And always find opportunities. So you're learning new skills and expertise. And also don't forget, when you're in this journey of backend engineering, right, you start off like say an apprentice, where everything the buzzwords and the lingos, you're just like beginning from there to like your journey to being like a senior software engineer, junior engineer, senior software engineer, architect, principal engineer, whatever, the different experience. you learn different things. And at some point, there's a shift between like being uber technical to being like, hey, this is a team, we got to collaborate and make. So you also start developing your soft skills. And that is also, and you're developing your leadership skills as you progress and as you put your lots with, you're building your experience, and then you're getting better at your leadership soft skills, which are all, maybe when you start off don't seem important, but they get very, very important when you are like looking at large scale, solving loads of problems with integrating, collaborating with different teams. So yeah, it is not that much. You just have to manage this like any other stuff. If you think you're getting bored, then yeah, see what else you can do and manage your burnout, work-life balance, like I said. Thank you.
Thanks, Rajani. Vina, do you ever get bored of like doing the same kind of work? I mean, are there days that you feel like, okay, this is getting boring and I need to do something else? And if so, like, what is it that you do?
Yeah, definitely. I think, again, similar to Rajani, like, it's interesting. And then it's, wait, okay, we're going to write another API endpoint, and oh, it's another handler. Oh, it's error exceptions. Oh, it's what's this log statement? Like, you end up seeing the patterns and then checking out a little bit, even as you're starting to implement things, which is sometimes a good place to be because it feels familiar, feels like you can go fast because you kind of know what you're doing. And in that sense, I think it's less burnout and more, okay, how quickly can you get through this to look at other problems? Or now that you've done it 5 times, are there any opportunities for you to step back and make it more efficient, optimize it, change the way you're either implementing it or testing it? But then in terms of, but yeah, I guess that's the case anywhere, right? Like, oh, I'm building another form, or, I'm, whether it's an API handler or form or type of test, whatever, lots of things repeat themselves. So I think similarly, like the 2 directions that Rajani mentioned, I would agree with. Figure out if there's something new that you want to start looking at. In my case, I stayed at a company for 7 years and ended up having 4 different jobs within that company. And that's because I would start to get that itchy feeling of like, this feels too familiar. And I really don't want to keep doing this over and over, because it's in my case, it was better for me to move on and use my enthusiasm elsewhere. And I was at a place that supported that. So I just kind of got new challenges and took on new opportunities. And so that's one side of it. I think the burnout side of it is, how do you figure out if actually you're carrying too much load, or you've decided like you're too much of the expert in the area where you're working, and you maybe need to step back and think about, how do I think about this work from a different perspective? How do I think about enabling the team rather than delivering the feature? Those sorts of things become really interesting. From my experience, I think I tend to go high level rather than deep into the technical because of my background. And I've been in jobs where I've been pair programming for 8 years. I think that's a huge way to help stave boredom, and to learn new ideas in a really dynamic way. So as I look for new roles and new opportunities, I'm always going to look at companies that do pair programming, and more dynamic ways of working to help keep things interesting, because 2 people talking about how boring an API handler is means that we'll probably have a conversation about something interesting that we can do as an alternative, or how to get out of the rut. So that's one of my approaches.
Thanks, Fina. That's a very interesting perspective. Irina, do you want to add on to this of like how do you manage the days when you are bored or you feel burnt out?
Yeah, well, if I burn out, I go to holiday. If I'm not bored by burnout, like it's a best way to go. Like in holidays, you understand what actually happened, why you burn out. Are you really tired, or you want to work on something else, or you don't really inspired, but what are you doing? And as the second thing, like once I had a job that I really didn't like what I'm doing, and these things were super boring, and there was no direction to grow up with the company, and I didn't have very good line manager who actually couldn't help me to grow up. Like he actually wasn't interested to help me to grow up and to solve tasks that's more interesting for me. And the thing to go out of this situation was to go and apply for different jobs. And yeah, I was really tired on this moment. So I started gradually with mock interviews. And I realized that actually I love to go even to mock interview. So it helped me to understand, okay, I'm going to still hold the same profession, but I'm just going to change the company. And yeah, the thing that why it helped, it also was like that actually. So I didn't have an office and I didn't like my job. So it was harsh time and it was really hard to motivate myself, like how to proceed. I still need to finish the project that I started, and I'm really responsible person. I can't start something and then okay, I'm gone. And I also couldn't like go to nowhere. I decided that if I go to somewhere, it will be another job or like at least some plan what to do next. And what really helped me just to find another job, and another job really like energized me and refueled me. And I realized that I love a lot of things here and I love people that I work with so much. So yeah, I'm currently staying now in the same job for a long time. I don't have this experience to stay in the same job more than 2 years, but probably my current job will finally be this one, because before I just changed the job before even 2 years passed in the same job. I too dynamic in my past.
Okay, thanks, Irina. Yeah, I mean, for me, I would say, yeah, there are definitely days when you feel like bored of doing the same work sometimes, because not every day will be a new challenge. You might have to face like the same things, repetitive things over and over again, as Rajani and Vina mentioned earlier. But yes, I mean, if you feel like that the boredom is coming along way too much, then you probably cannot function well. So for me, I have switched different companies and worked in different domains. So there haven't been many occasions when I'm not when I'm bored, but yes, there have been occasions when I probably could not connect with the work that I was doing, and I felt like I needed to actually work on something else based on my interest, to align with my interest. And I think probably that is what helps you stay grounded as well. Like you are motivated to actually not feel bored. So if you love what you're doing, if you love learning that part, I think that will help you overcome the boredness in that. Apart from that, yes, when there is like just too much work, there are definitely some weeks where you are exhausted. But I would say I would take some time off, probably dance it out. Apart from coding, I do love dancing. So I would go to a dance class, or I would just put on some music and just dance it off at home, or even like go for a walk and coffee and think about what other things that went good, and was there a possibility that I could have not been burnt out by prioritizing my tasks. If so, what could I have done? Essentially, in retrospect, think about the things that would have helped you not burn out so much. And I think take those learnings to the next project or next thing that you're working on and apply them there. So I think that is what, my take on this one. Coming on to the next question, how does the growth curve for a backend engineer looks like? And I know all of our panelists have had different levels of experience working in backend engineering. So we'll start with you, Rajani. How does the growth curve look like? Rajani, you're muted.
Better? Yeah. So I think different companies have different, depends on how they structure their teams, have different growth. I mean, you may have a career ladder, you may have a squiggly career, and apprenticeships are back. Usually in where I come from, a computer science degree or a degree in mathematics is a good start. And then so when you start off as the entry level, like I said, the lingo is just learning the ropes of things, and then you then mature into a junior engineer. We have some experience, and some areas you start specializing, right? Because something that you've worked on, you're a bit more confident, you've experimented, and you know a bit more, and then you transition from that level to abstraction. So where you are able to abstract and come up with designs and have that abstract thinking, rather than it's code and I'm solving this problem, to like a little bit more abstract thinking. At that point, you'll be looking at like senior mid-level engineer, and always working with like people in the industry, like the experts. You have other teams, and working with them and learning from them. And the best way for me to learn, and this is what I've done and has served me really well, is challenge every design, every code, every solution, and not in a like an arrogant way, but like say, hey, why have you done this? What does it solve? Why couldn't you? And start applying some thinking from your end, like why can't we solve it this way? Why are we not like the structure of a database, why is it not this way? Why are we not optimizing our database this way? Just ask those questions. And I know that often, depends on culture as well. We often feel that we are stepping on someone else's toes, or we feel we are we are attacking that person. But I think that person, because they're already in their senior level, have matured, and they know that it is nothing to do with like them. It is about like, knowledge, skill, and asking the right questions. And they prefer that sort of like soundboarding. When you ask, then it challenges their assumption, and it helps them soundboard. And if there's something that's missed, it'll help. So basically the journey, like senior backend and technical lead architect, when you basically start leading like different multiple teams, and you're putting architecture for like multiple teams. And then I think you end up as a CTO after like having done enough of that. And it depends where you want to go as well. Do you still want to be technical, or you want to go like engineering managers? And there's that option. You can always choose the path. But if you want to stay on the technical path, this would be it. But at any point in time, you can choose management with a little bit of the technical background.
Okay, thanks, Rajani. Vinay, do you want to add on to that one?
Sorry, I was just finishing typing a comment. No, I don't think so. Sorry, I have lots of thoughts coming in my head, but yeah, I'm good.
Thank you. Thanks, Vinay. Irina, do you want to add on from your experience on how the growth curve for a backend engineer looks like?
I don't know. There was a lot of things that's already said.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think Rajani covered the most of it, but just to add on a few more. I mean, obviously, when you start in backend engineering, you are probably a junior software engineer, or based on like your skills and the level that you start. And yes, different companies have different positions and different kinds of levels. And when you're a software engineer, like for example, some companies would go on and brand it as software engineer 1, 2, or 3, which would basically mean be differentiated based on the number of years you have spent there, or the kind of work that you are doing. And then you could be a senior software engineer, which again would be very broad, depending on the number of years you have worked with, the kind of projects that you have worked on, or let's say your skills. So basically, one senior software engineer could look like coding all day and doing analysis all day, but some days, and another senior engineer could be spending time in coding and also managing a team, or mentoring a team. And another engineer could also spend time, like designing solutions or architecting solutions. So it obviously depends based on organizations and how they structure their teams, what are the kind of projects that are involved. And yeah, I mean, post that, I think you do have like leads, and then lead engineers and principal engineers, and I guess development managers, and even there are senior individual contributors, where people who choose to just be technical and not spend time on managing other people. But yes, I mean, you could have those at different levels. And yeah, I think that is all that I can gather from the different companies that I have worked with. Okay, coming to the last question for today, and then we can open up the floor to anybody who has any question and wants to ask that to the panelists. So the last question is, what is the advice that you have for people who want to be a backend engineer, for people who want to grow in backend engineering, or people who are, kind of struggling to, I did see from the comments that to essentially decide whether or not to pursue backend engineering. And we'll start with you, Rajani.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to, like my advice, I'm going to have like a general set and a personal set, because, my personal things apply to just, thing, but I can share mine and a general one. So let me start with a personal one. So so this is how I do things, right? And I have, this has helped me get to where I am. So pick up a topic or two and explore and experiment, and see if you like it. If you do like it, take your learning to the next level. And you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be an expert. With so many years of experience, there's always something that I don't know. So just understanding that you don't have to be an expert. It is knowledge, and don't worry about, try and not have imposter syndrome by being that picture perfect. Just it's okay. it's only as long as you have the right attitude, learn, experiment, grow. It doesn't really matter whether you know it or not, because you can quickly scale yourself. And I would say atomic habits in the sense, take a small chunk at a time. Otherwise, you will be like, oh my God, like when I started in Philips, I was like, what is this? Is it electronics plus, plus embedded systems and everything else? I was like, wow, I don't know if I want to. And having done computing my whole of childhood, I felt that. So you can imagine that. So one of the things I did is I said, okay, let me just focus on small things so we don't get overwhelmed and it hits your confidence. Now, coming to the confidence, always have confidence in yourself, right? And like challenge design, I've already said, challenge a design architecture, pair program, just ask why they're doing things in the nicest possible way, and have more confidence in yourselves, because I often find I have to like ask engineers to give me their, like, what are you thinking about it? But I would have preferred where the engineers had the confidence to actually just challenge, hey, why are you doing this? And it's really good because they are learning and I'm getting to mentor. So the opportunity to mentor. So basically have confidence in yourself. You're there, and everyone, we have our strengths, and as long as we have the right attitude, growth mindset, we will get there. And I think that's how I transitioned to be a better engineer. I basically question, I mean, not initially, but when I thought this is not working, I need to start asking more questions. And actually I did the jump from like being a junior engineer to a senior engineer because I started asking these questions, and that helped me like open like, oh, okay, and go and explore and experiment. And I would say keep security and testability at the forefront. As engineers, when we start off, this is not super important, but it'll be really nice if I had to go back in time and give myself like, like, hey, you could have done something better. I would say keep security and testability at the forefront every time when you're building anything. Just remember that they are important. As we, as you mature as well. And don't reinvent the wheel. If there's already a solution that's tested and verified, take off the shelf solutions because you want to focus more on solving the problem, engineering problem, right? You don't want to be like doing maintenance and fixing things because like the scalability and the performance aspects were not handled. So if you're like, say, on the AWS cloud, and you went serverless, then the scalability problem mostly and the redundancy and the high availability is already handled for you. So you're doing less. You're not focusing on, I have to do this particular circular buffer so to be able to handle this. You're not putting any algorithm in place to handle the scalability. So always try and remember, don't reinvent the wheel, and keep it simple as well, like the code readability. And one thing which I can go back in time and change about myself is collaboration. Collaboration is pretty underrated, I think. So when we all start off, we are like individual contributors, right? So we want to be, it's all about us and our code. And I think I could have done better on the collaboration part of it. Like, I could have ensured that the integration issues were just minimized by just like calling out assumptions. Hey, did we blah blah blah, this is what we assume. Like even like just asking those questions really helps minimize that. Then when we are connecting, it's like, oh my God, I thought you would do this, and they'd be like, I thought you would do this. So I mean, of course there are ways, like you have interfaces, but even having interfaces, you sometimes may miss it. So try and minimize it by communicating like quite effectively. And I think it's our strength as engineers, like challenging assumptions and what it is. And then and I think one unique aspect of backend engineering is, of course, collaboration, right? It's a blend of technical and soft skills, because you want your communication and problem solving together in different teams, because you will be doing one part of it and someone else will be doing other part of it. And if you have DevOps team, they will be doing the other parts of it. So if you can, if you focus on your soft skills in that sense, it'll really help. And I think growth mindset. I mean, I didn't realize, being part of a team that, this team really was so open to growth mindset after moving away. And I was like, oh my God, that was like a big asset to the team. So have that growth mindset, just look at evolving new technologies, keep on top of it, and anything new, don't be saying, okay, I'm used to this kind of working, right? So I want to stick to it. So try and see, if you are in that mode, and just shift away from that mode and saying, okay, this is something new I haven't tried before, but I'm happy to try and see what it goes, and experimenting and see if it fits, it's solving the problem for you. And in general, right, I would say backend engineering is so diverse, and enjoy the diversity, right? You don't have to be an expert in everything. Just enjoy it, learn about this. Oh, I know this. And then you put like, oh, database. Oh, okay, I know a little bit about this. And then, you develop your learning about this. So, just putting the pieces in and finding opportunities to work on it. Like, I just go approach my head even, or my line manager, saying, okay, I would like, this team is working on it. How can I work with this team and actually leverage the skills, and I build on my skills? So don't be, I would just say, go for it. There's, sky is your limit. If you see opportunities internally, just go for it and say, I would like to, like explore this, and don't be shy to ask for it. And I think it's nice. Well, it depends on the culture, but actually in my company culture, you can go and say where you want to be, and wherever you want to be rock stars. So that's something I would say. And this is for like the starters. Like, I don't know what sort of, like, do we have all engineers? And if there are students here and thinking what I want to do, I think algorithms, strong foundation in computer science, a little bit. It depends on which companies you go as well. Like, you have loads of like Coursera's and MOOCs, MOOCs, where you can go and learn about these things. There's so much material. Just go get like a high level view and get that foundation, there. So you can go, and when you're working with, with teams, you can actually ask these questions and build on your language. And I think this Irina mentioned about learning a programming language, it really goes, so if you're just starting off, knowing, because at the end of it, a language is a language. The syntactically is different, but conceptually it's the same logic. So if you just choose one of the popular languages, just like Java is quite popular, Python, Ruby, depends on what you want. Just learn a language, learn how to like implement algorithms, learn about it, and then you feel a lot more familiar, and build projects. Like what so I would actually contribute to some open source projects, and I would have a pet project, as I would call, where I would learn about database. So when I started with Postgres was like, I have no clue what this is, but just learning about like Postgres and attending conferences and just seeing how it works behind the scenes, like Postgres, how can I optimize it, fine tune it, and behind the scenes you eventually get there, try, test, optimize, and spend your training time, on doing something even for the company, and stay up to date with industry trends. So what I do is I run like a AWS community of practice, but in your company it may be different. Just get together and just stay up to date with like what's going on, and just knowledge, knowledge. You just share your knowledge, and also like algorithms. If there are some things that you think, oh, I could do with learning about this particular this thing, just research it, try and implement it. And you have I think when you're preparing for the interview, you have some, you have platforms where you can go and develop this, start small, like basic, like add, and build on your algorithm, because it really helps when you have like big challenging problems. Then it really helps with your abstract thinking. So just build on it. And I think final advice is be patient, like don't go hard on yourself, and look at any failures that I have taken, like it's taken me a while to say that, setbacks and failures are an opportunity to learn. So just remember that any failure, if you fail fast, is good, and it's an opportunity to learn and grow. It's just added, like that knowledge that no one else has, that, hey, if you did this, this is how you will fail. And don't be discouraged. Just be persistent and do little by little atomic habits. Keep building to your knowledge, and before you know it, you'll be I don't know, thriving and an industry expert and an SME. That's it for me.
Thanks, Rajani, for all the advice on this one. Vina, do you want to add on anything to this one, on like any advice, any specific learnings that you might have you want to share?
I think Rajani shared a lot of great examples for what to do and how to approach things, mentality, headspace. It's really, for me, I think as Em mentioned, my experience is really broad. A lot of people I've worked with have really broad experience. You'll hit against the edges of somebody who knows so much about one particular thing, and it's kind of amazing to talk to that person, because you're just like, wow, that is so much knowledge about something I will never know that deeply. But in general, I think lots of folks know a lot of things about many topics, and that's how you build good teams, and that's how you get to deliver products that have diverse requirements. That being said, of course, as with front end, as with back end, as with anything, you will have specialists who do really gravitate toward learning deeply. Those people are really valuable in organizations as well. So I wouldn't want to discourage folks from going deep, but I think for people who are curious about backend in general, I wouldn't worry about hyper focusing on one thing, because the chance that that one thing is going to fit with the needs of your next role is pretty unlikely. And it's quite fun to learn broad and then pick up something that you learned a while ago and start to really evolve your understanding. Like I learned a lot 2 roles ago, and now I'm in a role where at least once a week, I'm like, oh yeah, that thing made no sense to me when I was using it before. I was just using it blind. I was just sort of, pressing buttons or copying and pasting code, and somehow it worked. And now, even though the in-between time wasn't focused on that thing, I still understood it more. I have a more rich understanding of why it works, how it works. So it's amazing how hard I can be on myself personally, because I feel like I'm not taking in enough, I'm not learning enough, I don't understand anything. And then if I step back and reflect over time, it's undeniable how much I've grown and how many things I've put together that I wouldn't have guessed. So I think that's generally the case. And I think for me, it was super important in the start of my journey in backend engineering, and it continues to be really important to me when I get into new domains, is that I need a support system. So if I tend to go places where I feel like I'm going to be supported by management, and I need to be able to say, I'm feeling super overwhelmed because there's too many new things coming at me right now, and I cannot sort out the noise. And I don't think I'm taking anything in right now, and get somebody to just hear me say that and help me unpick it, and then start to get my focus again. The number of times that a half hour or 45-minute conversation with a manager or somebody that I really trust has kind of walked me back from the ledge and helped me calm down, which meant that I could actually focus on what I was doing and get back to learning, has been really powerful for me. So I'd say, especially going into something new, stress test the environment you might be going into, not only for the role you might be taking, but also the type of management you'll have, the type of support, ask them questions about how they respond to folks who are new to something, or how do they support people, or what are their experiences with helping somebody transition into learning something new, because I think that can really make the difference of whether you stay in the industry or stay in a role or stay at a company. And it can also help you fail fast and decide to pass a role because you think, actually, this might be good for me in 5 years, but if I took this role right now, I'd be a complete basket case. So.
Thanks, Fina. Irina, do you want to add on to any of the advices for anyone wanting to move into backend engineering or want to explore the field?
I can advise one thing, like do not try to go deeper to everything. As the same that Vina said, okay, I still don't understand how it's working on the, like in the box. I think I spent too much time in the beginning because I procrastinated and tried to understand the things that, like I thought that programmer can understand everything. And some things they were like, actually they were designed only in this company, so it wasn't be possible to find them on the internet or to find out how does it work without reaching people and ask them like why it's working like this. And I thought that I can read everything from the code base because I'm an engineer. That doesn't mean. That was in my first job, and it's really pushed me back. Instead of going to people and talking with them, instead of trying to develop his communication skills, I just procrastinated a bit, like, okay, how actually does it work? Why I don't understand? I try to understand it, and I spend a lot of time on my own trying to figure out how to do these things, instead of just asking like, what actually I have to learn to understand it? What actually is a concept that I miss? And I'm not going to repeat this. And yeah, the things that a lot of things actually can be learned from courses, that's true, or from articles or from trainings. And it's good and useful things. In my current company, if I would ask anyone, like, what did you learn to grow up to the next role? They all say, like, okay, I just worked here and I learned a lot through working here, through the experience. So I don't have in mind right now something that can help me to grow up in my current company. But also, if I would like to learn more about the world around, it's a good way to go to the conference, to start to communicate with people there, to start to find out what they have as the problems, what they're trying to solve, and why they introduce these new concepts that they're talking about. That helps to widen the view board and connect with interesting people. Like once I applied for Yandex, which is like Russian Google, just because I met a guy on the conference and he told me like, hey, try. Why don't you want to try? And I just said, no, I don't think that, they have this algorithms and data structure interviews and etc. I don't know. And he said, no, you're from good university. You learn it when you can do it. He gave me so many materials through like chatting, and I was like, okay, this person telling me that I have to go and do it. Okay, I'm going to try. And he referred me to his department in this company, and I passed interview. I thought that I'm not ready. I thought that I probably need to solve 500 more tasks on lead code before I even apply to this Yandex job. And the amazing thing that I passed, and I met there a lot of people who became my mentors because they are really strong developers. So that's apparently that's my approach. It seems like for me it's really helpful to go somewhere to find someone to talk with them, and they can give me direction what to do. They like leads me. And it works much more better than when I try to do everything on my own. Then I try to learn something on my own, to explore something without actually check out what will be the reaction of the external, of the outside of the world. And that's how it worked for me.
Thanks, Irina. Yes, like so many good suggestions from everyone. And just to sum it up all, keep learning. I mean, learning is very essential to grow. So self-learning, self-educating, and learning from people around you you work with is very essential to actually grow in this path, to excel in this path, and also to gather a number of thoughts around how you can design better solutions, develop better solutions, and overall be like a better engineer. Yeah, I think that with that, we can wrap up the panel. And I know there are a lot of questions in the chat, but if anyone has any questions and want to ask that, it's all open to you guys. Okay, do we have any questions?
Don't be shy, ask us. I'll ask in the chat again because we answered some questions. So is there any else that's remained? And we can stop recording.
I just have, so I think Park Sharma has asked a question: how do you influence bigger architectural decisions and be heard with your ideas in a group setting? And what has worked best for you? And I would like to basically, like, say, having done a lot of architecture, building all the services, I think like in a group sitting, people will take notice when you start asking questions, and and no question is stupid. Ask questions to clarify your thinking. Can you understand? Can you build a mental image of it? If you don't be shy. I ask a lot of stupid questions, and I'm always asking questions, and you'd think I'm an expert, but I ask a lot of questions to build and to challenge assumptions. And your questions, like I have a team member who was always constantly asking questions, and I really appreciate it, because that questions not only is building her mental model, but is also like helping me think about things that I've missed. So your questions will really help them with their architectural decisions. And I would say, what I've often done is basically go back and say, if I were to solve this problem myself, how would I have designed it, right? Because there's always different ways of solving the problem, and there's just like code, there's not a perfect, you could do it this way, you could do it that way, and it's basically like okay, you're trying to balance things, right? So if you go back and then have, say, I would put this instead of this, and this is what it will bring if you didn't use like TCP/IP and use something else. So do those discussions, go back, reflect, and see what you would do and how you would implement it, and then take the solution and just say, hey, what about replacing this with this? Like, you would get this and this and this, and it would be, it would all work. And like I said, don't be shy. Just believe in yourself. And I often feel like, as women, I work in a very male-dominated engineering industry. I think we should learn to be like the men, believe, believe, brag, and believe in yourself, and just say, hey, I'm genuinely trying to understand this, and just go for it, ask questions. And I think that's how I do things. I mean, there are many ways of doing this, but that's the approach I use.
I think in terms of, so I think that's a great way to understand if there's an architectural conversation on the table and you're trying to understand it conceptually before you ask questions. I think a lot of those are good points. If you have great ideas and you're worried about putting those ideas out there because you're intimidated, because you haven't talked in groups like this before, because it's male dominated, because whatever, you have hangups, you have imposter syndrome, Again, I think that's where supportive networks are really key. So if you have an organization that has architectural boards, or you have COPs, or you have sort of networks of folks who are thinking of those higher level conversations, don't be afraid, even if you're not at that level, to ask whether they have joiners who are early days, and then to try to find pairs or mentors who you can reach out to one-to-one before meetings to say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'd like to propose. I don't know if this is an insane idea. So try to figure out like safe spaces to get your ideas out there. Generally, as Rajani says, having that conversation with somebody with more experience is going to help them make sure that they're being clear with what they're sharing. And it's always going to be valuable. And honestly, in my own experience and with folks that I've managed or mentored, it's like a 100% success rate of asking somebody for some time and being told, sure, right? When it makes sense, especially if it's somebody within the company. So don't be afraid to say, I have strong ideas about this. I'm not quite sure how they'll land. Let me reach out to somebody, put feelers out, see if I'm making sense. And then that person can be an ally for you in the conversation, make sure that your voice is heard, help you. Because I think sometimes it's hard to navigate in the moment. And if that's part of what you're worried about, then create the safe space ahead of time.
There's one more question. Did Irina and Abhipsha want to add to that? Did you have anything else to add to that previous question?
No.
Okay, yeah. Right, so there's another question here from Isa Nana. How long does it take to learn backend and be comfortable with it? Is backend with JavaScript a good option? So I think I'll leave backend with JavaScript. I'll answer the first question. You know, like we were talking about T-shaped skills, there's so much knowledge out there. You cannot be, this whole lifetime is not enough to like be an expert on everything. So just realizing that is a good start, because I've been through that journey where I want to learn about that and I want to be an expert, and then I realized T-shaped skills are the best way, because then you work with teams to solve problems. Someone has this expertise, someone has that expertise. You work together, collaborate together, and solve problems. So how long does it learn to take backend? Backend is very diverse. I would say pick something, just something that you think is popular and something that will get you, like what are your teams working? What are other teams working? What is the top language? What is the top, in terms of career and challenge, and something that you're passionate about and you'd like to learn, right? So just pick something and start building on it. And you don't have to be like super, like uber, expert, because as you are progressing through your career, you'll realize that a broad knowledge and how things fit is much more, you will just end up being that broad knowledge rather than having that deep knowledge, and you will go back to like the experts to get that. And of course yourself, you can be an expert at something. No one's saying one or more topics you can be an expert, but yeah, so that's what I would say, having been through that journey.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on that baby steps is very essential. I mean, you cannot learn everything in the same year, or even like the, because it's just so vast. Backend engineering is so vast. You really got to focus on something that you really like. I would say experiment, explore, but then focus on something that you really like and build your skills around that, because there are just so many different things to learn, and it could be quite overwhelming if you decide to, okay, that I want to be an expert in everything. That is not possible. You just got to pick the one track that suits you the best and then develop your skills around it. And success and essentially the skill set would obviously come gradually. You could learn something different every day, and that is how you build your skills around it.
And actually, Agnes has asked a brilliant question. I feel it is difficult to learn new things that are not used in my daily job. And are there any suggestions how to handle it? It's a fantastic question, because you are right, because we all like are there to deliver, and we're so focused on delivering that we don't have the headspace sometimes to be like looking at new things, even to step back sometimes, right? And I go with this mantra, slow down to speed up, is real, and it really helps. And what I do with my team, and agree with the leadership, because I think every company gives you a little amount of time for training. Make sure that you use that training. Go on courses that the company, you look it up and say, hey, I would like to go on this course, and see how it is relevant. And even if it's not relevant now, how it'll be relevant in the future, and and map it up. What we do as a team is, before we start our sprints, we allocate like 2 hours every week for training. So as a team, we go pick up things that may be relevant, something that's good, that you want to learn. Then we come back as a team, because just what you've learned is not enough, right? I want to know what my team has been learning, and learn from their, get the summary and learning from them. So they could be talking about machine learning, anything, and it's all interesting topics. So basically just keep schedule it in, and make it part of your planning, sprint planning, however you do your planning, and make sure you are part of if community of practice, part of this, and just being in these community of practice, you know what people are talking about, and that helps you build that knowledge. So this is how I manage my training. And of course, if there's something really specific, then I just and I'm because I'm a mom, when the kids are trying to put them to sleep, then I'm Googling about this topic, and listening to podcasts and learning whatever. And I find audiobooks the most useful of all, because in my busy schedule, I don't have time to read books, or I let the podcasts and audiobooks, because then I'm out and about and just moving, and I'm still learning, and it helps.
Thanks, Rajani, and thanks, Vina, Irina, and everyone who participated today. I think we are out of time now, but yes, I mean, I think we do have all of our LinkedIn profiles on the meetup. So if you want to personally reach out to anyone and just, talk or ask anything about any of the engineering topics, please feel free. And thank you for joining the session with Women Who Code London today. And I hand over the imaginary microphone back to Irina, who will be wrapping up.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks to everyone for joining. Thank you so much for your questions in the chat, and thanks to everyone who helped us to organize this panel. And I'm really happy to see that almost everyone is here. So you stayed for so long with us. It means that it was very interesting for you. And I'm glad to see you all. I hope that this session was very insightful and you learned a lot. And just few last words. Believe in yourself, trust your gut. Try everything. Try even if you're afraid, if you don't think that you won't be able to get it. Try, and you can make it at the end. You can go to backend engineering, and you can build very complex, big stuff that's actually running companies. And that's the success of company a lot in backend engineering. So you can make a huge impact by becoming backend engineer. And thank you for being with us today. And I hope that we inspired you. And I hope that we give you the direction that, okay, we exist, we are here, and we are actually working in this field, and we love it. And despite everything that is complex, we are still here. And join our Slack. We are here in backend channel, everyone is there, and we are there for you. We are happy to recommend more resources there and answer your questions in this channel. And yeah, please join us there and stay in touch, stay connected, connect everyone in LinkedIn. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Bye and have a good evening.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.